I'm Mary Meredith for Vintage Vehicle. Lance has sent me to Mooresville to the North Carolina Racing Hall of Fame. Here we're going to get a behind-the-scenes look at some very special and unique cars and speak to someone who knows a lot about the history behind them. We're here with Bob Hissam in the North Carolina Racing Hall of Fame, one of the volunteers here. And Bob, one of the questions we had is, how did the Hall of Fame get its start?
Well, in 1993, Don Miller, who's with Penske South, Don had a little project he wanted to do, and that's start a Hall of Fame for the drivers of North Carolina and also other drivers from other states. And so Don and a fellow named Bob Ebert went together, and we ended up getting our museum here, getting this started. We started out with 2 cars in front, didn't have very much stuff. And over the past years right there, we've acquired quite a bit of other things.
Wow. Well, how exactly is it that you acquire these cars?
We acquire a lot of the cars from a lot of business people that has collections. There's a lot of folks out there just has maybe 1 car or 2 cars, things like that, that they just want some place to put their car. We also have folks that will call us right there and they say, well, I've got such and such a car, and if it's authentic right there, we like to have it, but we do have a couple replicas in the museum.
And I've also heard you had a pretty impressive board member committee. Can you give us some of those names?
Yes, Don Miller is our main person in the board members. Gary Hill, he's an artist that does NASCAR art. Buddy Baker, Rusty Wallace, Bobby Allison, Mickey Nutting, Deb Williams, different people like that. We have a Joe Gibbs, Daryl Gwynn in drag racing, so we have people like that in.
Bob, what led you to become a volunteer here?
In 1995, I moved down to Mooresville from Parkersburg, West Virginia, where I lived for about 30 years, and I was a big fan of NASCAR racing, and when I found out that the North Carolina Auto Racing Hall of Fame was in Mooresville, I would like to volunteer or see if I could do anything in the racing part of it. I knew I would never be a crew member or anything like that, but I would enjoy the Legends people. About 2 months after I had moved here, the new director of the museum, which was my neighbor about 3 houses over, he came over one night and he says, I'm going to be the new director of the museum, and he says, I need some help. Well, he didn't have to twist too hard because this is what I would like to do anyway. So in the meantime, he let me pretty well just try to get with the other volunteers that we did have, the few of them we had. And so we started to building the place up right there with just a few cars in here. So as we went along, right there, we just kept getting bigger and more volunteers and things like that. And everybody does their own thing in here. We have a great group of volunteers here. We've had people here from day one.
Well, let's go take a look at some of these cars.
Okay.
So Bob, can you give me some history on this 56 Mercury?
This 1956 Mercury ran on the sands of Daytona. Russ Truelove from Waterbury, Connecticut was the driver and owner of the car. Matter of fact, when he took it to the sands of Daytona, he had made his second payment on the car. And he qualified 5th place down there. He's one of the northern drivers that come south and driving some of the races down the southern part. So he came on the sands, and like I say, he qualified 5th place, but he had a short day. On the 40th lap, Russ barrel rolled the car on the beach side or the ocean side of the racetrack of the 2.2 miles of the sands of Daytona.
And did he go back and restore the car completely to have it put back together and race again, or?
Yes, he did. He went back. They had to replace pretty well all the fenders, the hoods, and get the roof pounded back out. But it has the original body and everything else with it. And he did have it on the track in the future after that. So yes, he did run on it.
Oh, great. And what did he finish in Daytona in the car? Even though he barrel rolled, he still finished the race, or?
No, he didn't finish the race. The car was tore up too bad right there. He had finished probably about 5th or 6th from the bottom. I'm not exactly sure what position he finished at, but he was probably around 60th or 70th place at it.
Bob, I heard this won the 1953 Daytona. Can you tell us a little more about this car?
Yes, the car belongs to Bill Blair, who lived around Winston-Salem, North Carolina. He won the race on the sands of Daytona in 1953 with this car. Won an amazing $1,200 for winning the race.
Wow, and he was one of the first pioneers of a quote-unquote sponsorship, was he not?
He was one of the first ones in it. Most of the cars ran back at that time, but people drove them from the driveways. That's what they called a stock car. You could do very little with the car and make it race ready. This particular car right here had a little bit of sponsorship on it, like Firestone tires and things like that. Maybe Firestone might give them maybe 2 to 3 sets to run the 60, 70 races that they would run a year. Another sponsor right here might give them maybe like 3 cases of oil or something like that, where they could change the oil every time that they got ready to race. And
I also heard he had an edge as far as the pit crew stops as well. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, he's one of them that come up with this thing. On this particular car, it would take around 2.5 minutes for a pit stop. You usually had one member on your pit crew, and the guy had a 4-way leg wrench, and he would change the tires. That's for the people that actually had tires to take and put on it. But your people that drove from their house to the track in it, right, they would drive the cars, get them race ready, and most of them used the same tires that they had, whether they were old blown-in skins or whether they were decent tires. That's what they did with that.
And he had a hood latch advantage from the other competitors. Could you elaborate on it?
Yes, well, it took 2.5 minutes for the tires, the cars to come in and to pit in it right there. You had to do something to pick up a little bit of that time. They think people in the modern era of racing right there come up with all these little things. Bill Blair and some of the other drivers in it right there come up with the hood latches in them right there, where you had to pull your hood latch from inside to come outside and go in your grill and open it up again. You're wasting around 30 seconds. That could be a 3/4 of a lap on a track here. So if he come up with something, so they took the hood mechanism out of it, then they also made a bungee cord out of inner tube tires, which you could see on the front end right here, that they put eye bolts in the bumpers in them right there and come up, and all you had to do is just lift the bungee cord off, raise your hood, get in there. Purpose for the bungee cord is to keep the hood down while they're racing. Then also inside right there, you had a 3-speed transmission in them right there, and a lot of times they would pop out of gear on you. They would do the same thing and put a bungee cord around the steering wheel and take an S-hook and put it down on the floor, and they would just manhandle the car when they were shifting gears coming in and out of the pits. Then when you get back on it, you was all ready to go. But if you could save some time out of that 2.5 minutes, then you could pick up, maybe you'll be a 1/4 of a lap ahead of that guy who was leading the race when he come back out.
He was a very inventive guy.
He was
Speaking
one of them.
the front end, I also noticed this mesh type material on the front. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yes, the screen in front right there was mainly when they would run on dirt tracks. When they would go out and fix their dirt, get it all packed down and get ready for the race to make it smooth as they could. Then all these cars out there digging into the dirt and things like that, they start throwing dirt, mud balls and things like that up. Well, you didn't want that to get into your radiator, because if you did, your car's going to start to overheat on you. So they come up where they had a screen like this that just put just regular wire, screen door wire, something like that on it there, and they put a hinge on the top of it where it would flap up. The reason for them to flap it there, when they would hit their brakes right there, it would fly forward, and when they'd hit the brakes again right there, it would fly back, so your dirt would fall off. That way you could keep a fairly clean screen on it. Like today's people, they have a guy out there with a long rod, and he's wiping the grill down on it right there. It's the same thing.
Sounds like a very neat and interesting young man.
Yes, he was.
I heard Bill France wanted enough cars for the 1959 Daytona race for the new track. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Yes, he wanted to make sure that he had enough cars on the track for the new track after they came right off the 1958 series on the sands. So he contacted Holman Moody, which is based out of Charlotte, North Carolina, around the airport to build some cars. So Holman and Moody decided that they were going to build some Ford Thunderbirds. So this is one of the eight Ford Thunderbirds that they built. Getting the cars race ready, the car cost around $5,500. and the other car that you have to do a little bit of work to was going to be $5,000. So anyway, that the first race was won was by one of these Ford Thunderbirds. And so anyway, that's how the car come into being in it.
What's the difference between race ready and not race ready for $500?
Well, my understanding, what when race ready right there, of course you had your roll bars in both cars in it right there, but maybe like heavy duty spindles on the front of it, heavy duty suspension, and things like that for the other owner of the car for the $5,000, that he'll have to put these pieces on, and they might not be new tires on it. It might have been race tires, but they wouldn't be new tires.
Well, you said this was one of 8 that were made. How many are still in existence?
This is the only one, as far as we know, that's in existence.
So, Bob, who exactly owns this car, and how did you acquire it?
There's a guy from upstate New York. Him and his buddies decided to take his '56 Ford, and he's a big Curtis Turner fan, and they decided to make a race car out of it. They got a lot of information from different people, and they put this car together. This car is so well put together right there that Don Miller, our main board of director at the museum, decided to put it on our brochure, which I don't think you normally would have a replica car on a brochure from a museum, but this car is so special. It's a beautiful car. It's a 1956 Ford Sportsman car. Back in the Grand National days, the Sportsman car is like your British Series is today at it.
And you still keep in touch with Curtis's wife, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes, I am. Bunny Turner is a very good friend of mine. She lives in Virginia, and I keep in touch with her. I see her about 2 or 3 times a year right there. Sweet lady right there, and she's just thrilled to death that there's a replica of the car in the museum.
And did the original car, had it won any races? Was there a special meaning besides the paint scheme for Purple Hog?
I don't know if there's any special meaning for the name Purple Hog. The car was just painted purple, and so it was named, I think, just Purple Hog, what they came up with. The Grand National car was purple like this too. On the top of it, on the roof of it, and different places there, it was a lighter shade of purple on it. That made the 2 difference in the cars.
I heard this was the world's fastest car in 1961, Bob.
Yes, in 1961, Big Bill France Sr., he wanted somebody to break the 180-mile-an-hour speed record. So there's a guy named Bob Secchi from Charlotte, North Carolina, that built race cars, especially Indy cars. So he hired a driver named Art Malone, which is well known in the Indy racing. And they come up with this car. They ended up putting the wings on the cars right here, airplane wings, which they reversed, so you'd have downforce instead of lift on it. And the tail section right here is just like a tail that's on an airplane. It's beveled out just a little bit right there for the wind to come around, and they kept adjusting the wings on it right there to come up with the speed. And finally, they come up with the speed 181.5 miles an hour, and they took the $10,000 and went home.
They probably spent more on developing the car than they won the actual money for, did they not?
Oh, I'm sure that they did. Especially the car right here. It's got a 1961 Dodge 413 Hemi engine that he put in it with a supercharger in it to be able to get to that speeds.
I understand this is one of Davey Allison's cars, and he liked to nickname his cars. Could you tell us some about that?
Yes, this is one of Davey's cars here. It's a 1988 Ford. This particular car happens to be Fido. And Davey he enjoyed naming his different cars.
And beside of it, we also have a Jeff Gordon DuPont car. Can you tell us why it's so special and it's here?
Yes, this is a 1996 Jeff Gordon car. Jeff won the last race at North Wilkesboro, which was one of the famous tracks from the old Legends people that ran up there. It was a beautiful track, but days was come and it had to pass on.
So that car is the winner of the last race.
The last race, yes,
North
Jeff Gordon won.
Wow.
North Wilkesboro.
So, Bob, can you give us some more information on this number 2 car?
Yes, this is a Rusty Wallace car. It's a Pontiac, and its name was Midnight. This is one of his favorite cars that he drove. Then the following year, after this car here was done, then Penske went with Ford, and the same paint scheme was on the new Ford.
So Bob, I heard this car held a world record back in 1996. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, matter of fact, the owner of this car was Joe Gibbs, who's the football coach for the Washington Redskins. In 1996, Corey Mack was a driver, and he had a speed of 321.77 miles per hour. And it took him just a little over 4.6 seconds.
Wow. So how much horsepower in 1996 did you have to have in order to go that fast?
The horsepower with this engine right here was around 5,500 horsepower.
What exactly do they have to do special for the rear tires in these drag cars?
Well, these rear tires on these tough fuel dragsters had around 6-7 pounds of air in them. And when they back up in the staging area, when they come through to heat your tires up, run through the bleach in it right there, the tire will start building so much pressure in it that the tire will actually be oval shaped, and as it's starting to settle down, then the width of the tire comes out on it. So when they get up to the line and get ready to make the run down the quarter mile in it, then they're ready to go right there. The tire's completely heated.
Well, Bob, besides the fantastic cars we've got to look at today, what else can fans expect when they come to the North Carolina Racing Hall of Fame to see?
Well, in our Hall of Fame here, we have a lot of showcases in here. We have a Richard Petty showcase in here, and several others through the different legends through the years. One particular case is Louise Smith, the First Lady of Auto Racing. She raced from 1945 to 1956. Then in 1999, she was inducted into the International Motorsports Hall of Fame in Talladega. So that's some of the things we have. We have a lot of pictures on the walls, a lot of old drivers' uniforms, and we just have a lot of good information in here and a lot of real nice cars to see.
So Bob, can you tell us about these beautiful plaques that are standing behind us?
Yes, these plaques right here started in 1997. This is our Hall of Fame, our members that's been inducted in here. The first was started in 1997 with the King, Richard Petty.
So Bob, if fans wanted to come and visit or get some more information about this place, what do you suggest that they do?
Well, you could call the North Carolina Auto Racing Hall of Fame in Mooresville, North Carolina, or you can get on the internet on www.abbreviate.NorthCarolinaAutoRacingHallOfFame.com.
And I also heard that the proceeds from the North Carolina Racing Hall of Fame also go to a special charity. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, our money that we make here in the museum just goes for a little bit of the function of the museum, and all the rest of the proceeds goes to the Stocks for Tots. That's what our museum is well.
And they can get some more information about Stocks for Tots on the website?
They sure can.
Well, that's a wrap. I'm Mary Meredith for Vintage Vehicle. I look forward to seeing you here in Race City, USA, Mooresville, North Carolina. Hi, I'm Mary Meredith for Vintage Vehicle. Lance has sent me to, I'm eating my hair now, sorry.